This woman, known by the people around her as Jennifer Cybert, would hold a dark secret. Jennifer would live in 14 different states, 33 different cities, and be known by up to 18 different aliases. But why? As details would unfold about this mystery woman, a mind-bending case unlike any other would present itself. We would like to send our condolences to the family and loved ones of Joleen Cummings. Fernandina Beach in Florida is a beautiful part of the state, located just a little northeast of Jacksonville. It is the perfect place to holiday, or even somewhere to visit on the weekend to get away from the grind of everyday life. With beautiful beaches and a relaxed lifestyle, it's a great place to live or work. For 50-year-old Jennifer Cybert, it would provide an opportunity for a fresh start. She had been looking for work and walked into a hair salon named Tangles. The manager decided to give her a go, and Jennifer would start working a day shift. However, before long, the staff began noticing she was a rather odd person, and one employee in particular named Joleen would question her background. Jennifer would claim she had left an abusive boyfriend to make a new start, but something still didn't seem right to the staff, almost like Jennifer was hiding some sort of secret. And as a matter of fact, she did. In 2004, a woman by the name of Kimberly Kessler had gone missing from her home in Butler County, Pennsylvania. 8 years had passed by when in 2012, Kimberly's family decided to file a missing persons report. None of Kimberly's friends or family had seen her for close to a decade and questioned if she was still alive. Jennifer Cybert would know exactly what had happened to Kimberly Kessler, and she was the only person on earth who did. While Jennifer continued to work at Tangles, 34-year-old coworker Joleen would continue to probe her about her past. It's almost like she knew that something wasn't right and kept asking questions. This is not the first time she had faced this sort of issue. At previous jobs, she would often be questioned about her past also, and trouble seemed to follow her wherever she went. Growing increasingly angry with the attention she was receiving, Jennifer would confront Joleen one night outside of the hair salon. Joleen would fire back at Jennifer, calling her fake and telling her she was crazy. Jennifer knew she had to deal with this woman, and she would begin to formulate a plan. She arrived the next morning at work, knowing full well this was going to be no ordinary day at work. Joleen would continue to serve customers throughout the day, whilst Jennifer seemed preoccupied Google searching on her phone, not interested in helping. The workday would come to an end, and the two of them would be left to shut the salon up for the night. The following day was Joleen's birthday, and also Mother's Day, so she was excited to spend the day with her 3 young children. Some hours after the salon had closed, Jennifer was captured on CCTV at a gas station, several miles from the Tangles hair salon. She had scratches down her face, and the manager would ask what happened. Sybert told him it was an altercation with a friend's ex-boyfriend, and asked if she could borrow a phone to call a taxi. He would agree, and the taxi would take her to her destination, Tangles hair salon. Fast forward to the next day. It was 1 p.m. and Joleen's ex-husband was waiting at a Winn-Dixie supermarket, ready to hand the children he shared over to their mom. He continued to wait and tried calling Joleen, but received no answer. Knowing it was her birthday and Mother's Day, he thought it was odd that she was unreachable on such a day. He returned home with the children and would phone Joleen's mother to ask if she had seen her. After the conversation, Joleen's mother, Ann Johnson, would contact authorities and report her missing. Law enforcement would immediately release a missing persons flyer to be on the lookout for Joleen Cummings. They would stop by the hair salon the following morning to ask some questions. Police would believe that Jennifer Cybert was the last one to have seen her and would ask to speak with her. A coworker advised she wasn't at work and would call Sybert, who was on her way to work, informing her the police needed to speak with her. Little did they know, she had just pulled up at work, but upon receiving the call, would immediately reverse her car and drive away. She would give herself the day off, and then extend that leave further by texting the salon owner, advising she was quitting, and would mail her the salon key. Police would receive a phone call from Sybert just an hour later. She stated she would be unable to help them because she had a stalker who was a hacker, and that if they entered her name in their database, he would be able to locate her. Police obviously didn't buy her story and began looking into the background of Jennifer Cybert. The name and the address she had given her manager at the salon were all fake. Police were then tipped off that Joleen's abandoned Ford Expedition had been located in the parking lot of a Home Depot store. Jennifer was observed on the store CCTV footage getting out of the vehicle. Investigators then followed the route captured by different security cameras and saw the same person buy a bottle of water at a gas station using a credit card before leaving in a taxi. Authorities soon realized the person they were looking at was Jennifer Cybert. Officers would eventually find Jennifer later that day sleeping in her car at a rest stop, sandwiched between two semi-trucks. She had band-aids covering her face and hands, claiming the scratches were the result of running into a tree branch while riding her bike. It was obvious to the investigators that she had been living in her car for some time, from the amount of items and a mess inside of it. She was initially arrested for grand theft auto and brought in for questioning. Detectives would ask for her name and social security number. When they ran a search on these, things began to get bizarre. The number and name she provided came back to Jennifer Cybert, a 13-year-old girl who had died in a car crash in Germany in 1987 and was buried in a Butler, Pennsylvania cemetery. If that wasn't weird enough, when they would run her fingerprints, they would come back as the missing woman, Kimberly Kessler. Was this really the woman who had been missing for over 15 years? Investigators now realized that this was no ordinary case. They had just found a missing woman, who subsequently was likely involved with another missing woman. Now they had the task of trying to piece together who and where Kimberly Kessler had been all of these years. Kessler had been born on May 9, 1968 in Butler, Pennsylvania, and was the eldest of 3 siblings. Those who knew her back then said she was your normal average girl, liked by everyone. However, in her early teens, she would finish up one term at school and return to the following as a completely different person. Gone was the happy Kimberly, and in her place was an angry, violent, vengeful person. People learned to stay out of her way, because if you crossed her, the repercussions would be violent and extreme. Her own family were not even exempt from this change in attitude. After a fight with her brother Bob, she waited in his closet with a baseball bat until he had gone to sleep. She would explode out of the closet, hitting him in the face with a bat, knocking most of his teeth out. A former boyfriend, Tim Barnes, would recount that she had gotten so angry one night she stabbed him in the chest. She would also kill his cat with a shotgun and assault his father. Around the same time, they would go to visit Tim Barnes' father's grave. Instead of looking at his father's grave, Kimberly took out a pen and paper and started writing down the girls' names she saw on the tombstones in order to steal their identity. Zylan Losi married Kessler twice in the early 1990s. However, he knew her back then as Melissa McKernan and described their relationship as hostile and volatile. Tim Edwards dated Kessler in 1996 under the alias Miranda McKernan. Kimberly would fall pregnant and put the name Christina Brooks on their son's birth certificate. When Tim questioned this, he was told it was to hide her location from her abusive family. 3 years later, her son was removed from her by social services. She would turn up the following day at their office with a handgun, attempting to get her son back. When that failed, she would skip town, never to be seen again by her son or her son's father. July 4, 2004 would be the last time anyone from her family would see her again. She would spend the next 14 years from 2004 to 2018 moving around constantly. Kessler would take many different jobs, from stripping to waitressing and many others in between. She even managed to use a fake name and obtain a cosmetology license, allowing her to do hair care jobs. Kimberly would move to a new area, work for a while, start stealing or scamming, or go into one of her furious rages. She would burn her bridges with the people in the area, and then disappear, only to reappear in a new area with a new name, and the cycle would repeat all over again. One man she friended on Facebook said the day after they started chatting, she drove from Florida to Texas to meet him for lunch. After a lovely meal, he was taken back when she asked him to marry her. He turned her down and then blocked her on Facebook, only to later discover from police that she'd been following him on Facebook under 7 different aliases. Police had also contacted one of her previous husbands, who had this to say.
I heard something about she had stabbed you with some scissors. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, she was crazy. I can tell you that. She was, I know some crazy women, but she was out there. She had mind games.
Anyone that had worked with Kimberly had said that she was secretive, odd, and erratic. In 2014, Kessler had trained at Jacksonville Hair Academy. Her instructor recalls that she carried a notebook and wrote down everything that was said. At one point, she climbed into a cabinet just to see if she would fit in it. Another time, a fellow student came in with some sunburn, and she asked the girl if she could keep a piece of her flaky sunburned skin. The instructor was so disturbed by this that she decided to check out her criminal background. After 16 years of her chameleon-like lifestyle, disappearing and reappearing, she had lived in 14 states, 33 cities, and had at least 18 aliases. Her transformation with each identity would include the way she talked, walked, and dressed. April 2018 is when she would eventually walk into the Tangles hair salon and ask for a job. Her manager soon became aware that there was something strange about her, but she'd already been given the job. Whenever she left work, she would see Kessler sitting in her car watching her. Joleen was the one employee, however, who had a sixth sense when it came to Kessler. She knew something wasn't right and had threatened to expose her. While she was accurate in her assessment of Kessler, she had no idea of the implications it would eventually have. Detectives would continue to question Kimberly, who would deny any involvement in the crime. Sheriff Bill Leeper would call a press conference, stating they believed Joleen Cummings was not alive and that Kessler was being held in a $500,000 bond. While they had no body, they were building a mountain of evidence. A search of Kessler's phone would show that she had planned this for weeks. Her search history included things such as coworker guilty of killing coworker and missing person body not found, and no body, no crime. In the days leading up to Joleen's disappearance, thousands more searches were found in Kessler's phone, including Murderpedia, Victimpedia, Autopsy, Cadavers, Female Murders by Country, and Florida Female Murderers. On May the 5th, an employee at a boating supply store called police about Kessler's bizarre behavior. She had entered the store to buy heavy-duty zip ties, and at the counter, had given an evil, suggestive grin that had spooked him so much he felt the need to inform authorities. Police had already captured footage of Kessler driving Joleen's vehicle and dropping it off at Home Depot, along with getting a taxi from the gas station. They were also able to obtain footage of Kessler that same morning, purchasing trash bags, gloves, ammonia, and an electric knife. When they checked the footage near the salon, Kessler was visible on camera, struggling with what looked like a heavy white trash bag she was carrying to the dumpster. She would return to throw another heavy white trash bag into the dumpster also. Police would search the salon and uncover huge amounts of blood evidence on the walls, chairs, desks, and cabinets. Luminol would be used, which revealed a large bloodstain on the floor that had been cleaned up using a mop, which would also show large traces of blood. At Kessler's storage unit, her blood and that of Joleen Cummings was found on her black combat boots, a sock, and a pair of scissors. They also found 5 different license plates, 3 different cell phones, 4 wigs, and several cut ponytails. Further checks of Kessler's phone would show she searched how to dismember a body. After Joleen's disappearance, she would search her name on Google 357 times in just a 48-hour period. When she was brought into the station, she had several injuries, including on her hands, arms, wrist, thighs, face, along with a patch of missing hair and a bite mark on her thumb. Detectives believe Kessler dismembered, then disposed of Cummings' body in the dumpster behind Tangles hair salon in July 2018. Police and the FBI searched the Chester Island landfill in Foxton, Georgia for Cummings' body, but were never able to locate it. Kimberly Kessler was allowed her phone call, and surprisingly, she decided to call her mother after not having spoken a word to her in 14 years. She told her mom that she needed to come and post a $500,000 bail for her immediately. When her mom would ask if it was true that she had killed Joleen Cummings, Kimberly would fake that the line had dropped out and then say they had run out of time and hang up. Only weeks after her incarceration, Kimberly would request to be moved to a different jail. When officers refused her request, she would go on a hunger strike. After a week of not eating, they would eventually agree to relocate her. When she arrived at a different jail, within only days she was now requesting to be moved to a psychiatric treatment facility. Officers would again refuse her request, which prompted another hunger strike, this one lasting for 56 days. Kessler was indicted for first-degree murder on September 7, 2018. Her continual antics not only drew out her trial date, but made it difficult for the family of Joleen Cummings to receive justice. Kimberly's trial would eventually begin 3 years later in November of 2021. The judge would have Kimberly evaluated to see if she was mentally fit to stand trial, and after a lengthy process, decided she was competent. He would make the remark she was not delusional, but manipulative and a psychopath. Her refusal to cooperate was not due to mental illness, but because she didn't want to. Her behavior in the Nassau County Jail traumatized guards and staff to the point that they celebrated with cake and ice cream when she was finally transported to the Florida Women's Reception Center. While incarcerated at the facility, she would throw feces at guards, smear feces on herself, strip naked, and sexually abuse and racially abuse officers. She would also starve herself to the point that she weighed half of what she did when she was arrested, going from 200 pounds to just 74. When Kessler would finally make an appearance in court, she would be removed constantly for huge outbursts aimed at the judge and jurors. She was even wheeled into one hearing in a wheelchair, strapped in similar to that of a straitjacket. Her repeated attempts to disrupt the trial, however, would fail, and although they had no body, weapon, or confession, a jury would find her guilty of first-degree murder based on overwhelming circumstantial evidence. Kimberly Kessler would be sentenced to life in prison, without the possibility of parole. Joleen knew all along that something wasn't right with this woman, and she was right. It was just unfortunate that a heartless woman would leave 3 kids without their mother for seemingly no reason. And that wraps up today's case. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then check out one of these 2 other videos on screen that you may find interesting. We look forward to bringing you another worst case very soon.